First of all, I really feel so strongly that I'm saying so that I'm so delighted that Ramya has taken this initiative, which has been my dream for last 30 years, and she is taking it forward so well. I'm also very glad to see Nidhi here, though I didn't remember meeting him, but I'm so glad to hear from him and hear of his ideas. I have read a couple of his papers, and I feel very glad that we resonate together on many aspects, except for the last one he mentioned, which I will take up very briefly. And though I'm glad Ramya mentioned my punchline from the last symposium, and I still hold on to it, but I will add a positive one. Based on my understanding of how management ideas and practices have traveled across the globe, from Britain to US to Japan, to make it very, very crisp, I think I have read a lot of pieces in Academy of Management Review and Academy of Management Journal, and the whole issues about the grand challenges the globe faces and what is management to do about it. So in all these things, I feel actually our discipline, if I may, it's actually a multidisciplinary domain. Management as a domain of knowledge is actually facing a crisis of credibility, mostly. So actually in this context, I feel after the Japan success, we are at a loss. Japan gave some excellent ideas which were integrated by American scholars so well. Scandinavia gave a few concepts which were integrated. But I think for last 30 years or so, management as a domain of knowledge is at a loss, is not able to respond its critique. So where will it come from? Of course, it can come, the new ideas can come from anywhere. Though economically and perhaps on many other criteria of power, China is the heir apparent in the global schema. But I think India has an excellent chance to offer some new ideas, some new models of effective management. Because China, given its political system, will not, whatever succeeds in China, whatever ideas in China come from China, they will not be as applicable to most of the world. But India, 50 years ago, I decided that it came to my mind that India is the most complex society on the planet. It has the greatest diversity. Though diversity management became very popular in the last 15, 20 years, managers in India have always had to manage greater diversity. And so India has a very rich resource for social scientists and management scholars. So that is my positive message to my community, that if we try hard and in the right way, and many ways which Nidhi has provided I also consider them valid. But secondly, management being a kind of a profession which is closely linked to practice, as Nidhi also emphasized again and again. What we need in management research and scholarship in India is a much better collaboration between the managers and the scholars. And unfortunately, currently, this relationship is very bad. I have known managers who don't really enjoy talking to Indian academics in management. And that is why as soon as the market was opened for foreign consultants in India, all corporates went to Big Fours and Five. Consulting business, even in Ahmedabad, dried up. So I think as a community of scholars, we should be very cognizant that we have failed to establish a healthy relationship with the practitioners whom we claim to teach and advise. And so that is a major issue. But let me now come to the core thing about paradigms and indigenous management paradigm. I had a very interesting experience. We held a conference, international conference in MDI, some about 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And I proposed a track on indigenous management. And to my horror, we got very few papers in that track. And a few which came then made me realize what Nidhi was pointing out. Indigenous is supposed to mean those indigenous communities, aboriginals and things like that. And so it also indicates that perhaps every management scholar believes that he or she is really straight away aiming at the universal ideas, universal theories. About 30 years ago, I wrote a paper on challenges in developing indigenous theories of organization and management, which actually gives details of what are the challenges. But that was more of a thought piece. What I've decided to do today, how much time do I have? Sorry, I can't hear you. How much time?
Yeah, you have another, okay, it's 10:30, another 8 minutes.
Okay, fine. So what I've decided to do is, rather than talk at a very high abstract or philosophical level, today I've decided to share the paradigm in a sense that I have tried to practice. And I hope it would be of some relevance to some of the people attending it. Usually, I have always taught paradigm comprising of ontology, epistemology, axiology, praxeology, that kind of a level. But today I have simplified it. And I've gone back to Thomas Kuhn's way of looking at it, that it's a way a group of scholars, physicists did physics research. So no theory, what they did. So it comprised of what are the problems they were handling, they were wanting to address? What were the theories they were looking at? And what were the methods they were using? So theory, problems first. Theories, of course, come into play when you even conceptualize a problem. It starts with a field problem, then you have to conceptualize it. So theory comes into play. Then you have method. You, depending on your ontology, you have to choose your method, and then you try to solve that problem, theoretical as well as sometimes practical. So theory, method, and problems. One of the biggest challenges, problems with Indian management scholarship is that Indian scholars choose the problems from journals. This I call journal to journal research, in which the reality around us has no place. The standard practices, the scholar goes, and nowadays it has become so easy. When I did my PhD, it was not easy to look at all the journals. Now it is at a click of a button. You get all the journals and all the relevant papers. The problem of plenty, of course, scholars face, but they get inundated by it. And then they decide what is the typical term is research gap. Research gap is defined by the journals. And then what you do is you next take up the method, which is the most popular in American literature. So nowadays, for last 15 years, this is structural equation modeling. Everyone tries to use that and then collect some data analyze it. Of course, now analysis is also not a big problem. It quickly gets done. And then you report the statistical results and validate or question some of the theoretical concepts proposed by American scholars. That is the process of research as I have seen. But the problem begins with the problem itself. And I was so glad to hear Nidhi talking about Professor Sinha. Professor Sinha has been my role model. I had the privilege of reading his acceptance speech in the INDAM conference, which had happened in Noida, in which he stated, after he came back from US and he did not accept the IIM Ahmedabad offer for a faculty position, he chose to settle down in Patna, which was his hometown. And he says, he said in that address, I did not have to look into the journals to find my research problem. I could see it on the banks of the Ganges. I think that is such an important lesson for all of us. I luckily had some incidents which led me on the same path. As I always say in a kind of a tongue-in-cheek way, I had best of American education in India. I did my engineering from IIT Kanpur, graduated in 1971. And I did my PhD doctorate from IIM Ahmedabad. So I'm sure you won't disagree with my saying I had best American education in India. And so after doing my PhD, I decided to work in industry in an engineering company in Baroda. I was clear I want to be in academia, but I said I want to have some industry experience. So I did that. I tried to apply all the American ideas in that company. Some succeeded, some failed. And then I joined IIM Lucknow. After spending 2 years to learning the ropes of doing MBA level teaching, I started getting bored. Teaching was not my forte. I hadn't come to academia for that. I wanted to think and read. So I said, if nothing comes to my mind, which is more exciting, my corporate life was better. As the luck would have it, I remembered one statement by one of the very good managers in that engineering company, Dr. Thakkar. We used to have lunch together. One day he said, with a twinkle in his eyes, Rajen, all that you teach in IIM Ahmedabad doesn't work here. At that time, of course, I was full of those ideas. I said, no, Dr. Thakkar, I will show you. When I was in Lucknow and I was wondering what to do, which is truly academic, rather than teaching all the time from American textbooks, which every faculty member waits for, new edition, this sentence came back to my mind.
So just 2 more minutes. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime, I can stop anytime. You know, the beauty of the stories is that real life stories never end and they can be curtailed anytime. Anyone who is interested can come back to me. So let me stop there. There were 2-3 other incidents which shaped my thinking, including my visiting professorship in Rotterdam School of Management, which brought in the post-colonial perspective. Then I read Orientalism by Edward Said and World System by Emanuel Wallerstein. These were the 2 major influences. And then I felt very angry that what had these powers done to my country? I felt depressed. Then one day I said, oh my God, maybe I would have done the same thing if I was in their place. That settled it for me. I said, so what next? So what is to be done is to go back to India and try to do something. And I think that was the starting point of my theorization. It was actually, it had started earlier, but it made my resolve. And then, of course, when I moved from IIM Lucknow to MDI, we designed a PhD program. If there was time, I would have talked about how this pluri-versalism has been my guiding principle, though I did not know this word until I read the brief for this symposium. So I would talk about the theory aspect, which is the weakest aspect. The problem aspect is weak and theory aspect is weak in India. And I would like to talk a lot more about it. I hope in the later, after the presentations are over, we will discuss it. So I will stop here and can restart anytime you want, and we can get into a rich discussion. Thank you very much, Ramya.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm really so sorry to cut you short there, but we hope to hear more from you in the discussion part.
Sure.
Okay.